Hello and welcome to AEF TV in association with Engerati. I'm now joined by Alex Katon, who is the Executive Director for InfraCo Africa. And Alex, firstly, welcome to the studio. Thank you for making the time. Third day of AEF, so you know, everybody's a little bit weary. But we were talking off air a little bit about what your company does, and I'll ask that a bit later. But one of the key things is that you're looking for development teams, and we were then talking about, well, okay, which is a point that other interviewees have made about sort of skills shortages and how hard it is to find those teams. Can you just talk a little bit more around that topic?
Yeah. So InfraCo Africa was set up sort of about 10 years ago to try and address exactly that issue, which is we did an analysis at the time, and it was perceived to be there's a lot of money around to invest into good bankable projects in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa in particular. But what's lacking is people to deliver bankable projects. So skilled developer teams who have kind of done it before, who've closed projects, who've bought equity and sold equity in projects, as well as having the technical, financial expertise and contacts to bring these projects over a long period of time to financial close, to raise funding. So this was an issue identified by a series of studies about 10 years ago. So we were set up at that stage as a pot of money that was designed to, on a contract basis over a number of years, to support developer teams. So to pay their overhead costs, pay their running costs, but also pay the cost of developing projects up to financial close when they can bring in much more bank debt and mobilize more private sector funding.
So it's like an R&D fund, it's kinda.
Yeah, it is. It does, and R&D is quite a good description, in fact, because we tend to look at, we're not there to displace the private sector to do deals that otherwise would get done. So we go into kind of like the most difficult projects in the most difficult countries. And the idea is that we can demonstrate the project wouldn't have happened if we hadn't been there to make it happen. And ultimately it provides an infrastructure service or infrastructure need or benefit to the local population they wouldn't get otherwise.
So how do you work then? Do you find the team first, or the project and then the team, or you know, how does that work?
The way it works is that we hire teams really as an in-house, as you'd have an in-house investment team. So they might come to us with a pipeline of projects already. Normally, if they're experienced in the sector, they may have done similar activities in South America or Asia, a similar kind of market. But really the guys we're after are people who've started to do it in sub-Saharan Africa. They've got stuck, or they built up a pipeline of projects but lack the funding to bring it through to financial close, to finish off all the studies, to push through the contracts. And these are normally government contracts, so selling some kind of utility to a government entity. So it can take a long time if there's not a structured process in place to tender for that product already.
And absolutely, and being able to wait out that tendering process and still earning money along the way, because you've got to feed yourself at the end of the day, haven't you?
Correct. Yeah. And so we literally offer, we pay their running costs, we pay their salaries, their office costs, you know, wherever they're based, as well as the costs of building the project and developing the project.
So all of this, you know, there are a few disconnects in terms of the interviews I've had. It's just like there are people who are saying, oh well, the finance guys need to start funding these projects. There's lots of bankable projects. The finance guys are saying, well, we aren't seeing enough bankable projects. You know, it's like, well, those two things don't marry up. And I wonder, is the issue around the skills and the team thing? Because actually the project itself might be immensely viable, but if the comfort isn't there that the right team is in place to drive the project and make it happen, that's where almost the bankability falls off the cliff.
Yeah, I mean, there's two sides to it, to the skills thing. And one side is the developer team and who's going to sort of build and operate the asset. And then the other side is on the government side, where, you know, at the end of the day, what struck me the last few days, you really have to have people to make things happen. You know, just money doesn't make things happen. And what we try and do is provide the people into the right environment. So, but we're on the developer team side, and there are other institutions like the IFC who are funding a lot more government advisory. So, because you have to have a team of a legal specialist, a financial consultant or financial specialist to structure the project, as well as a technical specialist. Now, if you've got those three skill sets on both sides of the table, they've both done similar transactions before.
They know how to work together.
They know how to run to a timetable and to a budget. Then those projects, that's when the project happens, with will and skills on both sides. And that's what we've focused on quite a lot. And it's fine, I think, to kind of say, we'd like this to happen, and the question might be, so how do you make it happen? Does it happen?
Exactly.
So we've had one team, we spent about $80 million in the last 8 years getting 8 projects closed. So that wouldn't have happened, we believe, otherwise. And so we're funded by 9 governments put money into the company that I'm working for. And then we put it out to one developer team, and we're just advertising, in fact, starting a pre-qualification process, which is a series of questions. Have you developed a project before in Africa? Have you got infrastructure development skills, finance skills? So we're advertising for developer teams through the EU website this Friday, so the 21st of June.
Right.
We're going out looking for at least one more, probably 2 or 3 more teams like this to try and build development capacity in Africa.
You should reach out to a network like this. I'm sure someone will be able to know someone and things like that.
Exactly. A lot of it is through contacts. Most of these people, they're going to know somebody else because they've done it before. And then the other thing is to build up local expertise as well. So in every project on both sides of the table, you want to, as you build the skills, the need for our facility kind of goes away, because then you get the right people, working, doing the next project.
And I mean, it sounds to me like, and again, we haven't had the time to do a deep dive. So at the top level, it sounds to me like, why? Certainly from the other interviews that I've had, why haven't you got people just beating your door down and saying, hey, we can do this? What's the disconnect? Are you guys not visible enough, or have you taken this approach that let's work with one team, see how it all works, and then we can multiply that?
The answer is yes to both of those things. Right. We haven't been visible enough, and the first 8 years there was no internal management team, so I'm new to the company. I'm hiring a new team to find more teams, and even to look at co-investments just on a sort of project basis. So I'm a business developer by background. And the reason they've hired me is to find, the answer is, are there loads of people who've done this? And there aren't that many, actually.
Right.
So we did a sort of market testing exercise. In effect, we started off as a pilot. So we ran 8 years ago just on a very small budget, and the budget's gradually built up. So now we get roughly 20% of the private infrastructure development group, which is the PIDGE, these 9 governments. They have a budget for 3 years of roughly £500 million, and we get about a fifth of that, so about £100 million to channel into developer teams, not investing actually into the equity of projects, but just development costs.
Right.
So it actually goes a long way.
Yes.
So the answer is yes, we have quite a lot of money, but we're very specifically looking for people who have the skills, who've actually done it before. So to find experienced people in closing projects, there's not that many around.
Yeah. Wouldn't your first team almost be an incubator for people like that, so that you're almost kind of amoeba-like, the first team then splits because in the beginning they're junior members, but it's now been going for 8 years, so those guys have now got 8 years experience.
That's very possible, and they may be listening to this broadcast, so I wouldn't suggest that they'll go and leave and set up another company, but they themselves were a split off of a multinational company's development team, so ABB. So they started largely as ABB, which is an electricity company, and used to develop a lot of power projects with its own in-house investment team. And that team got disbanded, and some of them set up this business, just 3 guys, 8 years ago. And then now 30 guys, and men and women who have, and they have 4 offices around, 2 in Africa, and it's become a big business. And they've been able now to go out and start raising their own fund to invest actually into the construction part of projects, into equity. So they've grown as a team, and that's what we're looking to restart with more teams. So
you almost, that incubation has resulted in a business that is now almost self-sustaining.
Correct. It's now a profitable business model for them, and that's exactly what the objective is, to set up there in Africa. They were looking at Asia as well, South Asia, but now they're just sub-Saharan Africa focused with track record of developing projects. So they on their own can now attract international finance, a big pot of private equity kind of funding, mobilizing private sector money.
So how many teams are you looking for in the terms of the next round? Because you mentioned that based on what you've demonstrated, you're potentially getting more. I use the word potentially because you didn't actually say whether you are or not.
Yep.
Does that mean you're looking for more teams? What sort of scale are you looking for?
Well, one of the conditions of our current round of funding, so for this 3-year period, was that we find more teams, and we moved to a multi-developer model, having been exclusive with one team for the first 8 years, and it was proven up effectively as a pilot, as you say. So there's no fixed number. The target is definitely to get one team signed up this year in this round of, if you like, we have to go through an EU procurement process because it's all government's money.
That'll take some time.
So it will, we'll see. I mean, we've done it twice before, once in Asia and once, as I said, for this Africa team. So
so you know the hoops by now.
We've got some track record.
Yeah.
But you're right, it does take a lot of time and process. But no, before the end of this year, we hope to get at least one, and then we'll run, with that sort of blueprint, we'll run the next process probably in January or February for the next one. So I think the answer is one this year. We're aiming probably for another 3 or 4, and maybe some specialist teams who maybe, I know a specialist in geothermal energy development. There's a big part of the Rift Valley, there's lots of projects there, but no real experts that we can see focusing on Rift Valley geothermal, for instance. And there's something like, people estimate 14,000 megawatts of capacity available there. And if it was in Europe, someone said to me yesterday, there'll be 25,000 megawatts, because people will drill that much deeper to get this clean energy in Europe than you would in a normal environment or in Africa. But still huge potential. So there's a whole pipeline there. And things like solar, new technologies where the first of a kind or difficult projects, they're the things that we're interested to fund. Or in some of these sort of newly emerging countries, that post-conflict and fragile state kind of countries, that are just coming out of a difficult position. No one else will go in there and build a power plant, but they really need it.
Yeah, because I would imagine
those
there's also, looking globally, there's probably sort of pockets of expertise, solar, maybe Germany, there's Latin America, a lot of hydro expertise and stuff like that, and that could be harnessed. Well, it sounds exciting. I hope you get the project. And listen, if we can help amplify your need, just let us know.
Thank you.
And maybe if we get it done, it depends if you're watching this video. Maybe Alex will have given us the definitions of what they need, and you can maybe see that below this video on our website. So that'll be another channel. Alex, before we wrap, because we're getting to the end of our time, what's been the most sort of exciting conversation that you've been part of while you've been at this event?
Probably 2 conversations, I think, where I've caught up with developer teams who I've worked with in the past, so some people that I know who've been trying to develop projects, and with some success over the last 4 or 5 years in Africa. And both of those teams are now saying, we're at a stage where we need more funding to develop certain projects in more difficult countries. Right. And they're renewable energy projects, and they're in a difficult area, and they're going to take some time to close. And both of those projects are sort of, for me, they're mouth-watering because they tick all the boxes. They're fragile states, they're renewable energy projects, and they're with highly skilled developer teams who, generally speaking, come out of a long-term background of project finance and project development. So I've seen 2 really good candidates this week, which I think is very exciting, with 2 good projects. So
it's been worth your while already.
So it's been great. It's been great just to catch up and see those people out there.
That's brilliant. Alex, thank you for taking the time to be here, and thank you for watching. As you can tell, we're at AEF because you can hear the clanking in the background of our noisy caterers. And this interview and others are available on AEF and EnergyNet and Engerati. Alex, thanks again. Nice interviewing you.
Great.
Thank you for watching.
Very much.